again, there was a lot of optimism there. Like, oh my God, like this pilot is going to get picked up. I'm going to become a Nickelodeon star. Like, and then to hear that that's not happening at all, and I have to go back to school, like I have to go back and do math, like that sucks, you know?
Welcome to the Funny in Failure podcast, a podcast that celebrates failure and shines the light on the emotional side of comedy, with yours truly, Michael Kahan.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today's guest is insightful and self-reflective. It is really interesting to hear their story, and one of the many things that has stuck in my mind is the waiting for the industry to say yes to a potential role and the mindset needed to thrive during that process. It is really interesting to hear. Sahana is resilient and perceptive, and I'm excited to share this chat with you. Okay, let's get into it. Sahana Srinivasan is an actor and comedian. They are currently appearing in Amazon's new family comedy, The Pradeeps of Pittsburgh, and it has an amazing cast and is inspired by the personal experience of Emmy-nominated creator Vijay Patel. Sahana is also best known for hosting the science-focused Netflix docuseries BRAINCHILD, which is produced by Pharrell Williams in 2018. Sahana has since reoccurred on HBO's Insecure, Apple TV's For All Mankind, and also on Freeform's Grownish. On the comedy side, Sahana is also known for their characters and one-liners about cultural identity and life experiences, having been picked as one of Just for Laughs' new faces of comedy in 2023. So as you can imagine, we dive deep and we cover a lot, and we chat about their new show, The Pradeeps of Pittsburgh, comedy and Just for Laughs, expectations and hope, Nickelodeon pilots that don't go ahead, taking a break from stand-up, weightlifting, plus plenty more. Before we get into this epic chat, in case you aren't aware, the videos are now available on YouTube under Michael Kahan. That's Kahan with a K, unless you're listening to it already. I'll still be posting snippets of these chats on Instagram under Funny in Failure, so check them out if you want to stay in the loop for upcoming episodes, or you want to ask a guest a question. I'd also love it if you would share the podcast or share your takeaways from the chat. It really motivates me, helps the podcast grow, and ensures I can lock in amazing guests like this one. And just as a final reminder, the podcast comes out at 3:30 Melbourne, Australian time, with the full video of the podcast to be released the following day. Okay, cool. Thank you. Let's get into it. This could be a funny place to start. I think this is like your origin story. Your family
Okay.
encouraged you to do a talent show in your teens. Can you tell me what that experience was like for you?
Yeah, it was more so when I was like a kid.
Oh,
Um, we there were like local talent shows that were like run by South Asian folks or like Indian people in the community. Um, and people would do skits or dances or singing, whatever. And my dad and his friends would do like impressions or parody skits of like Tamil movies.
cool.
And I would have like a line or so in those sometimes. And then it became that like my dad would help choreograph a dance for me to do solo, or like I started getting interested in impressions, mainly of like tropes or characters that I'd seen in Tamil movies and TV. Um, and then we also had an element of that at like holiday parties that we would host.
Holiday
Um,
parties. That's
yeah, it
interesting.
would become sort of a talent show at home, like at a party, and we would do the same thing there.
And did you catch the creativity bug then? Getting all those laughs and all those. Is that when you're like, I know I
Yeah.
need to do? Oh, tell me more. Was it like a drug? Like a,
I think at the time, like it felt a lot less precious. So I didn't even expect laughs. I was just like, I think I'm good at this and I enjoy doing this. So like,
yeah.
sure. And then I think after it created that expectation is when it gets more challenging because you're going into it being like, I'm gonna like crush. And then when you don't, it feels awful. But like when I was a kid, it was just fun.
We'll get back to that. I want to hear about the expectations because this is a thing that is like plagued every single, we've done over 250 episodes. This has plagued everyone,
Mhm.
including me. When we have expectations, it's going to go so well and then it
Yeah,
doesn't. That horrible feeling, especially at the start. Is there an
yeah.
example that springs to mind that was crushing and how you work through it?
Um, Related to the expectations thing,
Yeah.
I think generally growing up, um, I was taught to have like high hopes and low expectations. Like just stay positive and hopeful, but like don't really expect it to go well. And like
Yeah.
that was like a protective mechanism, I think. And now I'm sort of unlearning that because there's really no point to it. Because you can try to predict what kind of outcome you'll get, but like even if you predict the worst outcome, it just never is exactly that. It's just,
Exactly.
you don't have any control over results. So like now I am more trying to just manifest good things and like expect and hope that things will go even better than I think,
Oh,
And, like truly like there's nothing actually harmful in thinking that way.
yeah.
There's no like I don't know. I'm sort of trying to unlearn Murphy's Law a little bit.
It's really interesting. One of my friends who's definitely doesn't think like how we think about in this space. I told him I wanted to have one of the best TV shows. I wanted it to be like second to Seinfeld. And he's like,
Mm,
why would you try and think, why don't you just try and make it the best? Whether it's
yeah.
the best or not, but why like say number two or number three? Just aim for the best. Because you're actually
Hmm.
like sabotaging yourself at some level. Just think a lot bigger. I'm like, "Oh, he gave me permission to think bigger. This is crazy."
Right, right, exactly. It's I don't know why. Well, I know why. It's because there's such a scarcity mindset in the industry and like you don't want to be disappointed. But like we don't trying to think how I want to phrase this. We're not scared that like, oh, if we think too optimistically, then the results are going to be good. But we're for some reason we think if we think negatively, and then things happen negatively, like that will be comforting. But like, we're not applying the same kind of logic to having a positive mindset.
Yeah.
And so, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I fully agree. It's also like sometimes I wouldn't say it's a victim mindset, and we all have this. This is not an attack on anyone. I understand 100%, but it's like it's almost okay. Oh, it didn't go well. It didn't go to plan. It's almost like we think that's comforting to be, but it's a journey for everyone, especially myself, to realize no, it's okay to actually excel, to have the best opportunities, to live your best life, and we don't need to kind of be ashamed because of different beliefs
Yeah,
that we've had and to unlearning, which is I find so exciting. This is what I've studied this for years. The process
yeah.
of unlearning so that you can live an abundant life. That's amazing.
Mhm.
Tell me more about it. I know I'm spewing things at you. How did you come to kind of this realization that you can, live a higher life?
Um, well, obviously, like it's not dismissing or invalidating how difficult this process is
Yeah.
or that like things don't always work out. Um, and it's more so just it's reminding you that you can't control the outcome, so why not just think positively? Um, because why not? Because then at least you would have been happy on the way there.
Yeah.
Instead, you're like, this isn't gonna work out the whole time, and then it doesn't work, and then you're just like disappointed the whole time. Like, what is the point in doing that, I guess?
Sorry. Oh, I said no, sorry. But on that as well, it means you're not able to enjoy the journey. And as you know, probably better than anyone, that you don't get every opportunity that you ask for. So it's about kind of enjoying the process along the way. And, every
Right.
actor I've spoken to is going to get rejected so many more times than they're going to get. So to be able to actually enjoy, whereas that would make it a very hard process to constantly like, I'm not going to get it. It's the worst thing ever, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, you were
Yeah.
saying.
No, I agree. I just don't see the point in like having low expectations. I think that's kind of the
Yeah.
main takeaway.
But it is surprisingly interesting and it's very mature and quite smart. A lot of people don't think that way. And
Hmm.
I understand because of other things, and we're not going to get into it, we'll just talk about you. But a lot of people don't feel they can actually put their hand up and ask for more. And I think it's really interesting that process of unlearning. And I've had
Hmm.
so many particular actors, for example, who only in like their 30, sorry, only in their 40s or their 50s or sometimes in their 60s, like, I can change my mindset. So I feel like you've done quite a lot of work on yourself to be able to get there. Or there have been these moments to realize my suffering, I don't necessarily need this suffering in that space. I can actually push ahead
Yeah.
and change my mentality. You're nodding. What springs to mind?
I think mainly because I started acting when I was younger. So like I feel like I've had time to experiment and have that mentality of like, it might not work out, but whatever. And then like doing that over and over again and realizing that it actually has nothing to do with what I think will happen
Mhm.
has led me to kind of have that, to change that way of thinking early on, you know?
I'm impressed by this. I'm going to keep on getting out more stuff because I think it's amazing. And there's two. I know you kind of started in Brainchild, but I think before that, please correct me if I'm wrong. You're on a Nickelodeon pilot show that didn't go
Yeah,
ahead. I would
no.
love to know a bit. I don't need to know about the project, but I'd love to know like kind of the mentality and how you get this pilot. I assume you think this is your dreams and everything's going to come
Of
to life,
course.
and then it doesn't go ahead. Tell me more.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. It was like a workshop that it was like an improv workshop at Groundlings that then became a pilot, a Nickelodeon pilot. Sketch comedy. We all played ourselves. We did a bunch of sketches. It was kind of like I think they were trying to kind of do a version of all that sort of the show that was a sketch comedy on Nickelodeon
Yep.
and I think in the early 90s. Um, and it was amazing. Like I think that like again there was a lot of optimism there. Like oh my God, like this pilot is going to get picked up. I'm gonna become a Nickelodeon star. Like and then to hear that that's not happening at all, and I have to go back to school, like I have to go back and do
Wow.
math, like that sucks, you know? And meanwhile, the whole time I'm like, I don't care about math. I'm gonna become a TV star, so I'm like not really putting in that much effort. And then I have to go back and be like, oh God, I have to like get better grades to save myself because I've been slacking off, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but it like now I'm like, oh, in the grand scheme of things, it was like totally maybe good that I didn't get that. I ended up getting these other opportunities. And I'm also glad I like finished school and like went to college. And not that there's anything wrong with not doing any of those things, but I think for me, that was like the way that that my life was supposed to go, you know?
Yep. I don't know if you could see, but if people are watching the video, a thumbs up came up behind your head.
Oh, this
I
is
don't.
live? Oh, hello.
Oh,
I
it's not
didn't know.
live.
Oh, it's not?
No, no, no. I'll release it some other time. But a thumbs up. I don't know. I've never seen that before. A thumbs up bubble.
Oh, here
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
on Zoom?
On Zoom, it was like a cartoon. Yeah. Can you not see that? I'll
I
send you
can't
a.
see it. Oh wait,
Do
I can see it. Yeah, 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 on my end, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah,
hilarious. I've never seen that before.
yeah, that's funny.
That is a
I was
cool.
like, you were like, oh, people are giving you a thumbs up. I was like, what?
No, no, no,
People
no.
are
Not live. Do not
no,
worry.
yeah.
That's crazy though. That's a massive roller coaster of emotions, especially at a young age. You
It
get
is,
this
especially yeah, especially at a young age. No, I was just gonna say that like you're already so confused and hormonal and blah blah blah, and then it's like, oh, you might be set for life. Just kidding. Go back to your normal life. It's insane. The emotional whiplash is insane.
how did you get through that? Because not only if you everything you've just spoken about, now you have to go to school and actually probably put in extra effort to like catch up or whatever, get the grades that
Yeah,
you wanted to.
yeah.
That'd be hard.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was jarring. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it was difficult. And
Of
like, I feel like I
course.
know other child like actors who started when they were kids who have a similar, a pilot or a show that didn't get picked up that sent them spiraling. Like, I've really connected with other people who have been doing it for that long who like had the same experience. And I can laugh about it now, but at the time it was really difficult. And um, it took some time to get out of that sad headspace and like so much is happening when you're at that age that like
Mm.
you get distracted and then you're like, oh, well, never mind. I have other things to think about now and like graduating and going to college, so it's like there's a lot of milestones there that I think took more importance very quickly. And I think
That
that's how I got out of it.
it's nice to know like life will happen as well. You still felt it, you went through it, I love this mindset where you're like, in hindsight, it was probably a good thing because you got to have other experiences. I think
Hmm.
that's like, I know it sounds wanky, like a winning mindset to go, you know what, I didn't go to plan, but here's what I learned. That's how I move
Yeah.
forward. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Um, yeah.
You're a wise human being. And then from that, were you thinking acting would still be a thing? Were you worried? Because every actor goes, "I'm never going to work again." I know this is early, and hopefully you hadn't caught that mindset. But were you thinking, "That's it, I'm done"? What was the thinking?
I definitely had I don't remember. It was a while ago, but I feel like I probably questioned if this is a good idea to keep doing this career. If it has that much of an emotional impact on me when it doesn't work out, is it even worth like the grind or whatever? Like is it worth when it does work out if I have to do get rejected over and over again and it feels horrible every time? Um, but I just think there's a reason why I haven't let it go for so long. I just keep going back to it. I just enjoy it so much. Um, and it's like, I think part of the appeal is that it's new every time. It's like, well, yeah, I did a Nickelodeon pilot, but now I have this cool audition for this like horror film where I'm just like a totally different kind of, it's not sketch, it's like, so it's exciting because it's never like over. Like you're never like you're just kind of constantly being challenged and excited and that the joy that I get from that probably kept me going.
I love that because it's all about play and fun. And I used to be an
Hmm.
accountant before. There was no play and fun. That was boring as hell. And,
Hmm.
just talking about what excites you from each experience, that's so contagious. I think that's
Yeah.
amazing. And you mentioned groundlings before. When did
Hmm.
you get involved in that? Because I'm obsessed with groundlings. Everyone here has very interesting stories about it. How old were you? And
So the Nickelodeon workshop, it was just like a one-time Groundlings workshop, and I did go back when I was like when I moved out here, like I think it was
LA.
like 2 or 3 years ago, like pre-pandemic, and then pandemic happened and I sort of fell out of it. But I do like UCB now. Um, and I enjoy it. It's interesting because, like, yeah, it's not interesting, but just kind of frustrating because improv institutions are so expensive and so clicky
Culty.
and like
I did
just
them as well. Yeah.
yeah, like naturally, but also just like cool that you have an opportunity to perform over and over again. And like, it sucks that you have to pay that much to just have that. Because, yeah, you can go to jams and stuff, but it's not the same thing.
Yeah. And you might
Um,
not be pulled out of the hat. I don't know how
you
it
might
works.
not be, or you're like with a mix of people with all different, like varying levels of experience, which doesn't always work out well together. Um,
That's for sure. I've seen some of the worst improv.
yeah.
But I like that sometimes, as long as I'm at the
No,
back
it's
of the room
fun.
and no watching it, as long as I'm at the back of the room and they
Yeah,
can't see my absolute horror that this is happening, then
that
I
this
can
is,
laugh
yeah.
and be free and not come from empathy.
Totally. Yeah. But I enjoy it because I don't know, I took a break from stand up for a while to do more improv stuff because I was like, stand up is so the opposite of it's like all pre-written. You end up doing the same thing over and over sometimes when you feel like you have a good set. And I was stuck in that mentality of like, well, the set works, so I'm going to keep doing it, even if I don't really enjoy it. And then the audience started to be able to tell that I don't and that I didn't enjoy it
Yeah.
because faking it got harder and harder. And then I was like, I need to go back to like figuring out what my voice is, like what actually makes me laugh, like without having any pre-written stuff.
Yeah.
And so improv was like a good space for me to play again.
Improv's also amazing because you're kind of working so fast, you're working from the subconscious. So you reveal your humor anyway because it comes out so quickly without you thinking about it. So I not
Mhm.
only learned so much about myself, I learned a lot about my comedy because it was just coming like, and when you don't think about it and question it often, or at least in my case, that was the funniest stuff. I'm like, oh, so I guess that kind of helped me with my style. Not that I'm an improviser by any means, but it gave me a bit more clarity around my voice. And that's one of the many reasons I love improv. So did that help with finding your voice and style and
I would say so, yeah, because I think that doing improv is where I sort of discovered. Mm, I mean, like like speaking in conversation, like being funny off the cuff, is probably where I was like, oh, I think I really like making people laugh. And so going back to that space of like just kind of seeing what works in the moment was helpful for me to rediscover like what makes me laugh.
yeah.
What makes me laugh and also like works universally.
That's really interesting because I've said this story before, so I'll just give a bit of a summary. When I first started many years ago, and I don't do it anymore, but I would like to get back into it. I thought my sense of humor is the only sense of humor, which is
Right.
ridiculous. I realized
Yeah.
that's not the case. And then after seeing different styles of comedy that I don't, well, I at the time didn't necessarily like, I'm like, wow, this isn't the only way to do comedy. There's this whole sphere, and it massively helped me realize
Mhm.
that this like exactly what you're saying, that there's so many different styles and different voices, and how one person does it might not necessarily work for me. But it was so exciting to realize because I was in such a box, and it really opened up my vision for comedy. And it's been a game changer since. And it's helped with my writing as well. I assume it's helped. I know you do sketches as well. I assume it's also helped with stand up as well because of like that, looking kind of 360 view.
Yeah, it definitely with stand up, I was always so, or am, I'm just not doing it as much now, but like when I was really doing it, I really relied on like one-liners that I wrote and like perfected, not even perfected, but like got the delivery down to a T where like I knew exactly how to say it every time to where it gets laughs.
Yep.
And like I was so scared to like some people work that way where they have to like write out everything, go on stage and try it over and over again. And then other people just like, riff and kind of have a subject matter in their head, but then they just kind of talk about it and see what works. And then and they like work out stuff on stage,
I
basically.
wish
And
I
I
could
was
do
like,
that. Yeah.
I know, I was just like, oh, I have no idea how to do that. But I think if I were to go back to stand up again and really do it again, I would want to explore that way, that approach, because I was like, oh, I'm funny in improv, like, and that's off the cuff. And so why not try that with stand up? It feels scarier because it's just you. And that's why I put so much pressure on myself to make it like really like solid and tight and not like, well, I don't even know what to talk about, or whatever.
It's a really interesting perspective because some of my friends who've seen improv and go, that's so scary. And I'm like, it's not actually as scary as stand up because you've got a team.
Mm.
So when you all
Yeah.
do inverted commas badly, you all kind of share it. But when it's stand up, it's just you. And we all can
Yeah.
feel like humiliated. And when bombs happen, we can all get in our head. But I think
Right.
it's a really interesting point that you brought up in that, these are my words, kind of the robotic nature of how some stand up can be. This is how it's this is how I'm going to deliver it. This is what the joke's about, and all of that
Mm.
stuff. And then trying to incorporate the play and fun. So what you've done
Mhm.
is you've gone to improv to realize that there's other ways to go about it.
Mhm.
Excuse me. But also from the improv side, I think that's really exciting that you can bring up that like fluidity and the play. So would you go back to stand up with fresh eyes and, try that style? Is that something on the
I think
horizon?
so. Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think so because I kept trying to like I'll sit down and try to write and I'll try to kind of emulate what I've done already and like kind of hope that I like just write genius stuff, just
Yeah.
like, figure it out. And like it's not really working right now. And I don't know, I think I just have to change up something. If I get like confused between like what I want and what I should do, and like because I'm good at it or something. Like I know that I'm good at stand up. I know I'm good at comedy, and so but then I wasn't enjoying doing stand up, and like I think I just have to give myself some grace and remind myself that I could be very interested in something for amount of time and then like decide that it's not for me, or like I have to change up my approach or something. Um, so yeah, I would be open to like going back and just kind of riffing on stage and seeing if that does anything. It's just scary because you're so used to doing it one way. But if that way is not working anymore, then why not change it up, you
Agree.
know?
There's kind of like that balance where you know it's not working, but then the fear comes in. And also when you hit a certain level, and I think you were in Just for Laughs, New Faces or something like that, which is
Few
crazy.
faces, yeah.
For people that don't know, that's, you're obviously a talented comedian. And then this is what other comedians have told me. Tell me if this resonates. If it doesn't, then we'll move on. Where they hit a certain level, it's gone well. But then,
Hmm.
to get the new material, we expect ourselves to be at a certain level, but then you can kind of feel like you're starting again for new material and then worried about, no one's going to laugh and all of those things. And you're like, well, I already had that success. I don't want to kind of go backwards. And that's kind of
Yeah.
scary. So what some people have done, and if it resonates, that's great. They've just gone to like open mics where there's not that many people and just tried a whole bunch of stuff. And then there's less pressure. But
I know the thing with open mics that's tough is like I'll have jokes that just don't do well at all at an open mic and then they crush at a show. And it's just like, well, duh, because there's like two people who are like drinking and like they're not even aware that there's a mic happening here.
and they're
They
all
don't want
writing
to
their
be here.
notes. Yeah.
Yeah, like no one, and then the rest are comics who like are like some of who are trying not to laugh so that like I don't know. Sometimes there's a competitiveness that
That's so
like,
sad that you
or you know what? I take that back. I don't think that they're trying not to laugh. It's more so that we've seen so much of it that we like know
where it's going to go.
where it's gonna go. And like, that's why I don't like going to stand-up shows. I don't like when my friends who are not in stand-up are like, you do stand-up, like, let's go watch a show. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna enjoy myself just because like, I'll know the like magic behind it and it ruins it for me. Like I don't know how to enjoy it that much, you know?
It's really
And
interesting. Oh no, go on.
I don't know, there's a lot of bad stand-up also.
That's true, especially at open mic level.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
From the jealousy side, and I've heard this over 100 times on and off the podcast as well, where especially not necessarily starting up, but at open mics, for example, even not even open mics, because there can be, as we said at the very start, a scarcity mindset where there's only a
Hmm.
certain amount of like gigs that can be booked, or
Hmm.
people can come from like jealousy mindset, and I've heard this 100 times, where they actually don't want to laugh because they're worried that if you progress, then you could steal a spot for them. And
Yeah.
that definitely happens, and that would be horrible. Like not everyone there's your friend and wants to support you. And I know you've got
Yeah.
like, I actually have a quote of yours.
Oh.
I can't find it, but it was around like jealousy and just being. Oh, let me see if I can find it. Anyway, it was around maintaining genuine and uplifting friendships and
Oh
how,
yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah,
I
can
was talking about like the question they ask was like, where do you find your courage or how do you and I was just saying like part of it is through having good, genuine like friendships that I guess make you feel reassured and loved. Yeah.
I think that's great because I used to be in an environment where, I left my corporate job and now I did improv. I studied kinesiology. I'm now doing screenwriting on the podcast. And at that
Hmm.
stage, and I'm glad for it, there was no like, you go and pursue your dreams. Like, why are you doing that? You're not going to
Yeah.
succeed. And we all have this at various levels. But a short summary for me was that I realized that was actually kind of hindering me. And I needed to be in environments where they could also challenge me, but also
Mm.
could be, your cheerleader. And it's
Yeah.
it's quite a journey for everyone to, go through that. And it sounds like you've kind of gone through a change over the years about, being in supportive, genuine friendships. Can you tell me more about that as well?
It's so hard not to feel competitive with your peers because it's like what even does coworker mean to comedians and actors? It's like could be anyone, you
Yeah,
know? Like I go to an open mic and I see a comedian there. Okay, that's suddenly my coworker. Like that's so
so
it's the
bizarre.
lines are so blurry. Like you and so but then you're like the industry's designed to like you get a like really good friendships out of you have to connect with people.
Yeah.
And like it's all about talking and connecting and making people laugh and like making people feel seen and understood. And so of course you're gonna like most of my friends are in comedy or acting, but it's also because I live in LA, but like even otherwise, it's a very there's a good community and it's like designed to give you a good community out of it. It's not just like a job that you're kind of doing for money and like you don't like your coworkers because like no one wants to be there and whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and then and then you're like going out for the same roles or whatever and like it's such a weird feeling to constantly be in competition with like people that you love. Um, but I think realizing that even if I made the same choices as my friend and we're both going for the same role, like it's gonna look completely different on either of us because we have different voices and different, looks and like life stories. And if my friend is booking, I'm gonna book too. Like I'm like if I'm surrounded by people who are like successful like that. I think I used to feel really like, oh no, does that mean that I'm not funny? Does that mean that I'm not successful? But it's like totally the opposite, you know?
Yes, no, I love that because I was exactly the same as you, where
Hmm.
now I've got this mentality, but it's taken me a while to get there, where if you succeed, I succeed. And,
Yeah.
I used to always ask this question, who are like the five people you surround yourself with, because you kind of like emulate their personalities and their traits and all of that stuff. So if you surround yourself with good people, you elevate. You want to like grow with everyone. So whether your friend gets 20 roles and you don't get any roles, you're growing with them. You're learning through that
Yeah.
experience. And that's a very unique mindset as well, because I've had plenty of actors on the podcast saying they didn't want to be surrounded by anyone. They didn't think it would be helpful. And then when they had this success, they had no one to share it with. And I'm not talking about a partner.
Yeah.
I'm talking about
Hmm.
like friends to talk about. And there's
Yeah.
one actor springs to mind. He'd worked so hard. He got this massive role. I think they gave him like a penthouse and he's looking at the 50th floor of this amazing view and he felt empty inside because he had no one to share
Yeah.
it with. And then he
Yeah.
realized he had to make change. So going to what you're saying is, it's a very challenging industry, but to have people
Hmm.
that support you and love you along the way will make it so much more enjoyable, fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've
Yeah, I
solved
agree.
we've solved all the problems. But that also
Yeah.
comes to you to be willing to do that because you kind of insinuated before you didn't necessarily have that. You've had a mindset shift as well. Anything spring to mind, or did you just realize it kind of wasn't working 100% for you before?
Well, for me, growing up, I think that it if I was being pit against my peers who were also South Asian, Indian people, like it was by other white people or other white acting coaches or casting or whatever. Like, and it may not be like I'm hearing it directly, but that was just kind of the general vibe was like, there's only space for like one, or like, or even in a toxic positivity way, like I was told, like, oh my God, you're gonna like be so successful because you're brown and that's really in and la la la. And I was like, oh
In,
my
that's a
God,
big, yeah.
that's all kinds of problematic to say. But also like it made me feel really special at the time. But like now I'm like, that is so much pressure and also like makes you hate other people who are doing the same thing. And like that's why I really love like I bring her up all the time, but I love Issa Rae. She did Insecure and she talks about this all the time. It's like there's this particular video where she's like, we have to we're always thinking about networking up and being like who has more resources than me that I can like access or talk to, but we have to think about like networking on the I don't know exactly which
Yeah,
it was
I
like
get what
on
you're
the
saying.
side or something. You know what I mean? Like where
Yeah.
it's like, okay, who of my friends can I bring with me? Um, and how can we work together to create something? Um, and I love that she has that mindset, and I try to have the same mindset of uplifting like my peers and the other people who look like me. It's like the feeling of like when another South Asian person like reaches out to me and is like, I'm so inspired by you, or like I like how do I get into this? Like, can you please help me? And like that feeling of um helping someone or even just like getting along with someone who like has the same interests as you is so much more rewarding than like icing them all out and being like, I'm the only one who deserves like
Yeah.
opportunities, you know? Like that feels so icky.
You said a lot then. That's great. I love the journey there as
Sorry,
well.
no, I did say a lot.
No, no, that's in a good way.
Yeah.
Don't need to feel bad. But also like I think that's so awesome. Some people think it's always to the next level. I have to get to the next
Yeah.
level. And you've also said in a previous interview, it's not a linear industry. It's
Mm.
not, you're in this big show, which we'll talk about soon. Fingers crossed you get 10 seasons and it moves forward. But sometimes you'll be on this big show and then you don't get on the big show, and then you get on a big show and all of that. And
Yeah.
to kind of like rise above with people, first of all, it can be more enjoyable if it's with friends or people or like-minded people as well. But I
Hmm.
always had this mentality where I would have to go to like someone at a much higher level than me, and we're all at different levels, and that's fine. And I have to do it with them. No, yeah, go on. What I can see you nodding.
Oh no, I'm just like, sorry, I'm like a
No,
crazy
sorry.
active listener. And so I'll be constantly like, yeah, exactly. Cool. You know,
Yeah.
so I'll let you like finish what you're saying,
Oh,
but
no,
I'm
no, no.
just
I was just going to say, like, then I have to change my mindset. And I've worked with people, friends that aren't even in the writing space, for example, and I get them to read my scripts. And that is so much fun just hearing them talk about it. And, it might not help writing for them because they're not writers, but it helps them activate creativity in other senses. Or
Mhm.
some people have gone, I read like 20 scripts of people I don't even know in the last few months just because, I thought it would help also me learn about good and bad scripts, and
Right.
it was so
Yeah.
rewarding to, especially a lot of them were new writers as well, and that was a lot of fun as well. And I don't have this mindset, but you never know, maybe one hits a really high level and they want to work with you. That's a bonus as well.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It's like there's so much to discover from people who are yeah, and I agree with you. There's no
Okay.
like levels or whatever, but you know, like people you can I guess access or like your peers, your friends, you know, and I think that's where we should start versus trying to like
Hey, Brad
reach
Pitt,
out to
want
someone.
to do my
Yeah,
skit. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So,
And that's what also helps me with improv. Like I did improv a while ago when I first started out. Half the people there had like comedy or acting aspirations. The other half just had anxiety, and it massively helped them, which is crazy, like crazy
yeah.
great stories. And I thought at the time I was at a certain level, as I've told you with my comedy, I was the funniest person in the world, obviously. And
Mhm.
then realizing that mindset was incorrect and I needed to change. But also using people there that were just, starting up. That was so much fun. We did a whole bunch of skits, and rising together, it helped all my comedy. It helped so much things. And to me, that's been some of the most enjoyable times in my life. But then you
Mhm.
also hit a point, and this can be scary. You're living and breathing, you're in the industry, this is your livelihood. And so there is, fears also come into play. When am I going to work again? I'm not doing
Yeah.
stand up at the moment. So how do you still balance that while try and like have fun and be, use those creative juices as well?
I'm still figuring that out, honestly. Um, it's so jarring going from like having a completely different lifestyle. You're on set, like you're told what to do and when to be at a certain place and time and like what to eat. Like they feed you,
Oh,
like
true.
everything is like kind of just you don't really have to you like do your job, you like learn your lines, you like get the character down, you come to work, you do your thing. The rest is like kind of like taken care of. And you go from that for a few months to like, oh, all of a sudden I have to like do everything again,
Mm.
which like of course that's normal to like, yeah, you're supposed to take care of yourself, but like it's definitely just like such a huge juxtaposition that like gets a little used, you have to get used to that kind of feeling and like preparing yourself for when you're gonna be on your own again and having to, and I don't know how to like do it like well yet, I'm still sort of figuring that out. Like every time I finish a show, there's like a post show like depression, kind of like, oh man, what am I gonna work again? Like what am I doing? And then I guess in when you're in that headspace, just, it's probably best to be kind to yourself and like acknowledge how insane that jump is and then like get up and kind of take care of yourself.
It's
Um, yeah,
uh, I'll, you go.
and having a life outside of like acting, obviously. I mean, people say that all the time. Like I know it sounds very cliche and like tired, but like yeah, it's I like and truly a life outside of creative stuff because I'll be like, yeah, I'll take up boxing because then I want to do an action movie someday. And it's like, no, dude, you need to like do things truly unrelated to acting, and it's hard to do, especially when you live in a city that like kind of is fueled by just anything related to
Yeah,
acting and
it's all
movies.
occupied.
Yeah, so and that's when it's like, okay, travel, like go somewhere else and like just experience a different life.
It's very wise, and especially for the non-actors, people don't realize, it as we said, it's really hard to get a role. You're gonna get
Hmm.
rejected 1,000 times, or not 1,000 times, but and then you get the one role, you build this family, it's intense, they're long
Yeah,
hours, you're making friends, it's exciting, it's new, you really like the content, or hopefully you really like the content and what you're building, and then everything's extremely structured for you, and
yeah.
then you lose that structure. Just the structure side is
The
can be quite.
structure, exactly. I think that's more so what I meant because I feel I, yeah, I think it feels embarrassing to be like, they're feeding you, they're taking care of you, and now you have to do it yourself. Like, yeah, of course. But I mean more so just like knowing that at 10 o'clock, I'm here. I mean, literally looking at a call sheet, it's like down to the minute, everything is scheduled. Like we're doing this shot here and then this shot, and then they're like, here's the call sheet for the next day. Like you know exactly where you're going to be at all times of the day. And then you're just like in your apartment, like the hurry up and wait of it all is so crazy on your brain. It's just like, and now I'm waiting for my next gig. And you can't do that. You have to just like enjoy your life and do other things and get involved in it. That's why I think volunteering is so important because acting is just so me, me, me that you're like, well, now what? When am I going to book my next thing? Well, what's the next me thing that we're going to do? And like, why not just spend your time if you can afford to, like spend your time like thinking about other people.
That's a great mindset, and your thoughts and feelings are very valid. You don't need a, well, I'm not saying that you do, but even being structured at 10 o'clock at lunch, this is when I get fed,
Yeah.
this is when I do that. Doesn't matter
Yeah.
who you are, that structure's ingrained. And I think that's really
Yeah.
interesting. And also, from an acting point of view, as you said, you don't know when you're going to work again. And so you've got all of this like designs in this world, and then it gets taken away like that. Whereas if you're
Mhm.
working corporate job, it doesn't quite work like that. You're kind of in and out. It's the same world, but here you're going to different worlds all the time, and that can be really overwhelming. And so many people have spoken about, the job, the depression afterwards, because like now what, when I'm going to work in all the stuff that you said before. And I know you said this stuff that's helped you. I don't know if you still do it, but if a little while ago, I know that you're into weightlifting. Do you
Hmm.
still do that, and how has it helped?
I do that. Not as I think it used to be more of a thing in my life where the most difficult part of weightlifting for me is the like keeping track of how much protein, how much fats and carbs that you're getting
Yep.
in order to put on muscle. Like I'm not even talking about like in a losing weight kind of way. I mean like it is so exhausting to eat so much food to put on muscle, and it's like an all day, like it's a lifestyle change.
Yep.
And I think it got too much for me to like think about that all the time. Like I'll be at a party and we're like, there's food there, and I'm like, okay, how much protein is in this thing and this thing? And it's like I'm not present, you know? So now I'm
Mm.
just, I've sort of like, I track my protein because I think that's at least the least that I can do easily in my head. Um, but the rest, I just like, if I'm too exhausted, I won't go to the gym. Like I'm trying to listen to my body more.
Cool.
Um, the I do think the things that I learned from weightlifting that I can apply to other parts of my life are like if you are consistent with anything and like do all the things that they tell you that are like key to growing anything, like it will happen. You will see the numbers go up at the gym. You will see changes to your, like you see that you're getting stronger and like bringing in groceries inside is easier. Like it's just you see change that like sometimes it's harder to see some of those tangible changes in comedy or in it's kind of like oh over time you feel more confident going on stage etc but there's no like quantitative way to measure that the way that
Mm.
you can with weightlifting
Yep.
that I really like um and it just there's also like unfortunately a horrible diet culture eating disorder you know tendency for actors and weightlifting is to me a great way to stay healthy while taking up more space than less. Especially when women are taught to be small and like and not saying that I identify that way either, but you know what I mean? Like
Yep.
just generally actors at all. And like for men, it's like how jacked can you get? And like that becomes a problem with weightlifting too, is like that's something I learned too. I'm like, oh no, this same kind of eating disorder like tendency could still exist in weightlifting, just in a totally different
Yeah,
way,
manifest
you
differently.
know? So just kind of fa finding that balance is important. But
Awesome.
overall, I think it's only been beneficial for me.
Oh, that's really cool. And it's a really interesting point that you bring up because with acting, with comedy, sometimes it's hard to track the wins. But
Yeah,
with weightlifting, my weight has gone up. I can do 10 kilos, I can do 15 kilos.
yeah,
So it's actually a way of like kind of probably building like control in your life and saying, no,
yeah.
I am improving. I can see it. No one
I
can
can see
tell me
it. Yeah.
otherwise.
Yeah, yeah. And like also seeing growth and change like takes precedence over um any sort of aesthetic thing. I think like yes, it was cool to see myself getting physically like stronger like in my muscles, but the excitement of like being able to lift a lot more like just was way more rewarding.
Mm.
And that's also why I enjoyed heavy lifting.
That's very cool. And also, did it kind of like show you, as you said before, the consistency? If I build out a practice, people could talk about yoga or going for runs or weightlifting. If I build at something, I'm going to improve.
Yeah.
That's really exciting to know that because you
Mhm.
can feel that, but you know that.
Yeah, like my one of my best friends, we're like the same person. She's like we both went to college together. She's also South Asian and weightlifter and comedian and actor and plays the piano. We're like, I don't know, tied by the universe or something. I don't know. It's crazy. But she would compare the gym to open mics or to comedy, like breaking it into pieces and kind of analyzing each piece of it in the sense of like, oh, the gym is your open mic, and like eating is writing, and um,
Oh.
the numbers going up are like getting more laughs. Like there's just like you can kind of compare both, and basically it's gonna feel like a workout when you're on stage and like it kind of it makes it less personal. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, if it's just like lifting. I go and some days I go to the gym and I'm like, I don't feel like lifting. So I go home. Or some days I go, it's a horrible lift, but I got through and I'm still like putting on muscle, even if it was a bad lift. So it just um helps it feel less personal when you're like, oh, I bombed. That feels awful. I'm a bad person. No, you're still actually making progress. You're learning something. You're growing. And that is cool.
I love that. That's me clapping. That's you joining as the co-host on the podcast. It's also like from the bomb's perspective as doing stand-up. That
Yeah.
I don't have enough comedy experience to talk about how frightening that would be. You get up on
Yeah.
stage, you've poured in your like heart and soul in your jokes, and then
Yeah.
you get those bombs. But it sounds like you've got a much better perspective. And from what we said before, we've given you homework to get back on stage, given all of your beautiful mindset and applying it, that you're gonna get up there. So that's your homework next time we speak. You're
Yeah.
gonna be doing,
Okay.
yeah. But do you find like now that you know you've done the gym and you've had your amazing friend and we've spoken about this now, I'm sure it gives you a bit more perspective with the comedy of now, you know, being able to get back up on stage and actually realizing, you know, you can do it and you're going to progress and we're going to get for just for laughs. You know, I don't think it exists anymore, but you know, you can,
I know. It's pretty crazy.
I know.
Um, yeah, I think it still feels very personal to me, like doing stand up, and I think that's why I prefer to do characters. And it's easier for me to have that kind of mentality with characters because it's not really me. Um, And maybe that's how I feel when I go to the gym. I'm like kind of being this like evil, like brooding character when I'm at the gym. I'm
Yeah,
like way less smiley just because I'm like I'm working out. I'm not there are people who go to the gym and they like to talk and they like to catch up with people, but I don't really like to do that. But like
no,
it's
not
my
at all.
space to get angry. It's my space to get like
Get it out.
mysterious, you know? So I wonder if there's an element of that where I'm like it doesn't feel as personal like when I don't lift a heavy weight because I'm like, well, that's just like my evil guy, like who didn't lift it. You know what I mean? I don't
Yeah.
know.
It's interesting, you know, talking about from the gym side. I meditate, and a lot of my friends like, let's go and meditate together. I'm like, no, that doesn't make any sense. That is, it's like
That's
inwards. I don't want. It's not a
right.
social thing. So when you're talking about
Not a social
weightlifting,
thing.
you're there to like perform a job. Yeah, you can
Yeah,
maybe have fun in your own way or play the character, whatever. But I'm not
yeah,
there to like. It's not a sociable thing. It's a thing that I do for myself. So I
yeah,
completely resonate with that as well.
yeah. I don't know if that answered your question necessarily, but
No,
did it?
no, we got there, and I no, because it's what you're saying is that you know it's about going like inside of you, and you know making that
Hmm.
you. That's your practice. That's what helps your health. That's what works for you. I think
Hmm.
that's great. Before we before we talk about your show, I just want to tie up a few points. So with improv and sketch, is that still something that you're doing at the moment, or still involved, or
Yeah, I'm just finishing up the last course in at UCB. So I'm going there every week.
nice?
And sketch I do occasionally. I run this like variety like game show, stand-up show thing with my friend Danny.
Oh,
And it's called the Gay Gay Game Show. And the premise of it is that we are trying to adopt a kid, but the adoption agencies have deemed us way too unhinged and silly to be able to adopt a kid. So we have to find a third who can co-sign and like be the perfect parent, the ideal parent, and the game show puts them to test it tests their skills of like being a parent or whatever through like minute to minute style challenges and games. One of the games is like um it's kind of like heads up that where there's like a bunch of phrases on the projector of like um platitudes or advice that you would give your future kid, and the audience has to mime it or charades it
yeah.
to the contestant. and they have to like guess what they are. So it's like involving it's very like audience interactive. It's like silly and fun and we do a sketch up top every show that like where the characters that we're playing are very like we have transatlantic accents, very like
You're good with
uh
accents. I've heard you do a few.
thank you. And it's just silly. It's like a sitcom style like sketch. And so we'll do like goofy sketch stuff there. But anytime I do that show, like yes, I do get nervous, but it's so much fun that I just like again, I love the gimmicky like shows where you can't really take the material from that show and replicate it at like a late night set or whatever because it gives it more room to be specific and like there's more magic in it being a fleeting thing, you know? There's more magic in just that audience knowing what happened in that room and then you never do it again. So I think that's well, sketch technically you do replicate it a few times. But I feel like not nearly as much as stand up. Like stand up
Yeah.
you could like you do your like hour long special or whatever and it has jokes from like 10 years ago, which I'm like there's no way like yeah, you can like change it to make it relevant now, but like for me, I have a hard time making stuff that's so old feel relevant or fun. And like my voice is constantly changing and what I like is constantly changing.
Brilliant. I love that. And one, to see you light up talking about this idea, which is amazing, by the way, and definitely you, and you bring out, that element of your side, you bring out your personality is amazing. But it's very interesting because you were so lit up. Maybe this is the avenue you go for now. Maybe because the way that you're speaking about stand up and the way that he's talking about sketch and improv and all that stuff, you definitely like lit up more. And it's amazing you bring out the characters. That's such a good idea. Can the public watch this?
Yeah, we haven't done a show in a while because my co-host is working on there's like solo show and some other things and then I got carried away with like the Pradeeps like stuff. But hopefully we'll do it again in like December. But we usually do it at the Elysian in Frogtown.
Amazing. And to hear about, you don't understand how exciting it is. You've just discovered the answer. That's what brings you the joy to play the
Mhm.
different characters, to do that type of style. And it's
Yeah.
different. It keeps you fresh. I love that. And now,
But I do have to show you my cat because I
oh,
love
yes, I have a dog.
my cat.
I hope we can still be
I
friends.
don't know
Oh,
why she has this on her head.
that
Why did you put
is,
this on your head?
that is so cute.
She's
Friendly
two
cat.
and she's very friendly, but she's very like independent because she was found on like the street, like she's a street cat and I think she feels very like I'm strong. Like she's like I've seen way more stuff than you have. And so she doesn't like being babied at all,
Yeah,
but she's so tiny. I love to baby her.
that's so cute. I love cats. My wife hates cats because she's allergic to them. So that's the only thing we
I'm
just
allergic
keep.
to them too, is the thing.
How do you cope?
I take allergy meds. I kind of just put up with it. Like I love you said you had a dog?
Yeah,
Yeah. What's your dog's name?
Barney.
Barney?
Yeah.
That's so cute.
I thought that look
Um,
was like shit. Are you gonna like it or not like it? I think it's
no, no,
wonderful.
no, that's so cute. I love that name. I just don't think given like the career that I've chosen, whatever, like I don't know if a dog would be if I can take care of a dog when I'm like gone for like 12 hours a day.
Yeah, fair.
Cats aren't cool with that amount of time away either, but they're a little bit better. And I'm
Yeah.
not doing it all the time. It's just when I'm like working or
No,
whatever.
I banned my brother. He works like 14 hours a day. And I'm like, you're not
Yeah.
getting a dog. I forbid you.
No. Yeah.
Won't work.
Yeah.
Before we do and I love cats, so I want more. It looks like I was wearing a hat, so you have to send me photos afterwards. But before we go, you're in this really, I just saw the trailer, it looks really funny and really interesting. The
Mhm.
Pradeeps of Pittsburgh. Can you tell me about it and how that's been going? Because it's just come out recently.
Yeah, the show is about an Indian family that moves to Pittsburgh. obviously, given the title of the show. And they get into um, just all sorts of like funny, chaotic, like crazy situations, mainly because they like kind of have beef with their like white neighbors. And I play Banu Pradeep, who's like the like angsty, sarcastic, like teen daughter. Um, I think my interpretation of her leans like Violet from The Incredibles or Wednesday Addams or Aubrey Plaza, just sort of like, you know,
Cool.
very sarcastic and um brooding, but then like is a little weird, you know?
Yeah, I saw you've uploaded and I've seen a few clips as well. It looks like such a fun role to play, and I can see you really
Yeah,
embracing it as well.
thank you.
Is so what happens now? Is there going to be a season two? How does
I
this?
don't know. I hope that, people people have been liking it. They're saying it's funny and interesting and um yeah, and now it's up to I guess Amazon.
So everyone has to petition Amazon. That's how they
Yeah,
watch it.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Email the CEO, demand that
Yeah.
you want at least three more seasons. But we'll probably
Yeah.
have to talk about this another time. But how's that been? You've just done this show. It's amazing. It's going to go to 10 seasons, as we've said, and then it ends. It was that a hard, well, hopefully it temporarily ends. But what was that like? Because, it's quite the production and then nothing.
Yeah, I mean, that one was interesting because it was a bunch of fun and then I came back and then the strike happened. And then it took like I thought as soon as the strike ended things would pick back up, but it's been really slow in the sense of like implementing new contracts and like whatnot. I have no idea. It just
Yeah.
has been like not what I think we expected. And I think because I'd done that so many times, like I'd experienced that feeling over and over again, I had more practice
Yeah.
and I knew how to deal with that feeling a little better.
Nice.
And also, I think the past 2 years, like since we wrapped production, I've been in such a self-discovery like phase. I like recently came out as non-binary. I got like a big hair change. My hair used to be like really long, and like I don't know, that may seem minor to some people, but to me, like it's been like really nice to get to explore some of those things and embrace things that I've always wanted to do and try new things. And again, that is what I think is important to do when you're not working, is to like cultivate the parts of yourself that you couldn't when you're working like 15 hours a day.
I agree.
Um,
It's
so
nice that you could like bring out the best in you, especially when you've had an experience where you're enjoying it and then it doesn't, go to plan. You
yeah,
could wallop in self-pity, but you've made all these wonderful discoveries for yourself. That's very
yeah.
impressive. So did the show necessarily help with the confidence or realizing, you've played this game before, it's ended, I'm just gonna, enjoy life and see what comes out of it?
I was so anxious. Like I was so nervous and was so like, I hope I'm doing a good job. And then I see the show and I'm like, oh, this person's like doing such like this is great. And I
Nice.
remember the scenes in which I was like so nervous and you can't tell at all. I don't know if
Yep.
that's good or bad that I'm able to mask how nervous I can be because on one hand, I would like people to know so that I could have some comfort in that.
Yep.
But also part of the anxiety comes from the fear that people know how I feel. And so that goes away when I'm like, well, you can't even tell. So what's the big deal? Like,
Yeah.
and this is something I've talked about before where I used to think that like confidence is a lack of fear or nervousness, but like you're confident because you're scared and you overcome it, you know? And so there was a lot of that when I
Really,
did
and
this.
it would also be nice to know that perhaps, correct me if I'm wrong, that the inner critic isn't as strong as we thought to go, hey, I'm actually a good actor. I actually did a
Yeah.
great job. That would have been quite
Yeah.
refreshing to see
Oh,
as well.
sorry, my cat is like yelling at me. She's like, "Stop talking about yourself. Talk to me." And I'm
No,
like, "Girl,
I
it's not your You're not on a podcast, so, you
Well,
know.
maybe I can get it next time. I
Yeah,
think that's
yeah, you
great.
should. She really has a lot to say. But yeah, it's like also it was like so freezing cold and we were like shooting stuff outside and just like knowing that I'm able to do all that and do it well and also still be kind to myself is huge. Um, because I like it's both things are true. Like yes, I enjoy acting and sometimes it's incredibly challenging. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
Yeah. And that's important to note as well. We might think like if I'm writing, for example, it's not always amazing. It's much better than me not doing it, but there's highs and
Right.
lows. Not everything. It's not always 100% amazing, but it makes you
Yeah.
appreciate the whole process or the journey, the show. So it's very wise. Um,
Yeah.
any last things on that before we do a very quick rapid fire segment? It's on Amazon. People can check it out then. It's out now. Anything else you want to say about the show, or we've got a great glimpse into it?
No, no, I'm ready for rapid fire stuff.
Rapid fire. Okay, ready to rumble. What did Brainchild do for your confidence?
Can you hear her at all? I hope you can't. Okay, great. Um, what did Brainchild do for my confidence? It made me realize that you don't have to be an expert in something to um like there were a lot of moments where I was like, "Oh, I don't know what I'm talking about," but I'm saying it so confidently. And then I was like, "Wait, I do know what I'm talking about because I just did that." You know? So I didn't have to be like I'm like doing science experiments on the show, but obviously I'm not actually a scientist. But I think I realized that you don't I can be an actor and also do science experiments. There's no rules.
I'm not going to very cool. I'm not going to comment on these because I'll derail them. And how was
Sure.
it to receive so much praise? And you mentioned people said that you inspired them. How was that?
I definitely had a lot of imposter syndrome initially because I was like, I'm not who you think I am. And then I'm like, but who am I to say that? Like, I can't get in their heads and assume that this is what they feel about me. Like, I think I have to like believe what they're saying and leave it at that and not like analyze it any further.
Mm.
Um, and it kind of taught me how to like take compliments. Um, because people appreciate it when you truly accept them also. It's like it's not always fun being humble, you know?
Yeah,
So
nice. We kind of answer this. What's been your favorite thing to do when you're not working?
hanging out with my cat.
I was just about to say, good answer.
Yeah.
What brings the best creative content out of you?
Oh, no pressure. Like when there's absolutely no pressure is when I feel the most creative.
What would you do if you knew you could not fail?
Whoa. Like anything, probably everything.
Anything in particular?
I'd I'd probably just make a lot more art. I'd probably make a lot more, I'd write a lot more. I'd like learn new things because there wouldn't be this pressure to be good at it.
I was about to say at the start, but I got distracted. Your tweets, bring them back. Videos, I've seen some of your videos, very funny. Bring them back.
Thank
They're great.
you.
I want to see more of them.
Thank you.
Um, any advice you want to give to people who want to try something different on you, but perhaps a bit fearful of doing so?
Everything at some point was different in you, I think. And then it doesn't because you just do it over and over again. So I don't know. I think there's this I used to think that people are just like naturally born talented and leaders and like experts in what they do, and it's like that's so not true. Obviously, it comes easier for some people than others. Like I do believe that some people have natural talents, but like not like it still takes effort to really cultivate those talents, you know? And so um it's okay to kind of be bad at it at first because most people are.
Um, I'm not sure if I asked this. Did I say what your next big dream is?
Oh, In regards to acting, I'd love to play a supervillain with imposter syndrome. Maybe I'd write that. But just
Dude, that's
like,
so cool.
yeah, just like someone who's just so externally like confident and evil and not in like I feel like super villains are actually like the ones that we see on screen are not actually evil. They're just like not good at executing stuff, you know? So like I don't know, something like that where they're constantly questioning uh if they're good, but they're like the most evil person on the planet
That
or
is
something.
such a
I
good
don't know.
character arc as well.
Yeah.
That's also your homework. I don't normally give homework, but you got a bit of homework for next
Yeah.
time. Last question before I ask how people can follow you and keep up to date with you. What is the one question I should have asked you?
Oh, um, if I like pickles,
And
because I love pickles and I
is,
love talking about pickles.
why do you love pickles?
I love that there is like a pickled something in every culture. And like I love learning about what that is for people. Like there's pickled mangoes that you eat with like yogurt rice in for South Indians. And then
Interesting.
like kimchi's not exactly pickled, it's fermented, but it kind of has to me the same energy as pickled stuff. And then obviously there's pickled cucumbers. There's like so many different kinds of pickled cucumbers like different flavors and like I love how crunchy they are and I don't know, I'm just obsessed with pickles.
I think you would appreciate this. I was just at the Jewish Film Festival a few days
Mhm.
ago, and they were handing out free pickles, and that blew my mind.
Oh, yeah, I love pickles. There's like a pickle festival or like it was called Pickle Palooza or something like at the Grove in LA that I went to and I don't know, it's like I think it's I just like them.
That is such an interesting hobby. Or I don't know how you do it. Do you make them? Do you?
No, I wish I would like to make them, but I really want to start like a pickle podcast or web series where my friends and I just eat pickles and talk about their influence in our lives.
I think you should do it. Isn't that big channel where you have like hot wings or hot sauce, and then they just talk
Yeah,
about
yeah,
life? You can do that with
exactly.
pickles.
With pickles, yeah, exactly.
Great idea. And before we go, how can people follow you and keep up to date with you?
My Instagram, of course, it's Sahana underscore Srinivasan. That's kind of the main, because I used to do a lot of stuff on Twitter, like you said, but Twitter's kind of a dying app, I think.
I want you to get back and do those tweets, or you can do it somewhere else. They're great.
Yeah, I might just, maybe I'll take them and do it on stage or something.
Great idea. Thank you. You're very empowering. This was great. Thank you so much. And yeah, looking
Thank
forward
you.
to
Yeah, this
all
was so
your
fun.
brilliant homework that I've given you. Looking
Thank you. Appreciate
problem.
it. Thank you.
I love how Sahana realized that comedy at the time wasn't working for them. So, in order to go back to the love of the craft and figuring out their voice, Sahana decided to go back to another comedy avenue, being improv. I love this because sometimes when we're experiencing burnout per se, trying something different or new really help with bringing out why we wanted to try in the first place. So, I'll leave you with this epic quote. The only way you can stay on top is to remember to touch the bottom and get back to basics. Shane Black. Thank you for listening to the Funny and Failure podcast, exploring the deeper side of comedy.